Please, 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 I will confess, don't kill me, please, please, please. Papa Okoro was the oldest man in Abana. With a back slightly bent by age and a head full of white hair like cotton, he walked slowly but purposefully. His dark skin, wrinkled like dried fruit, told stories of years under the sun, toiling and surviving. He had no wife and no children. No one knew why, and no one dared to ask. Yet, in a village where family was everything, Papa Okoro lacked none of the love that most people worked hard to earn. His home sat humbly on the edge of the village, made of mud walls and a neatly thatched roof, always swept clean and surrounded by the sweet smell of herbs. But what truly set him apart was not his age or wisdom, but his land, a single plot by the riverside, far from the other farms, kissed by the rising sun and blessed with unusual fertility. Year after year, Papa Okoro's farm produced more than anyone else's. While others prayed for rain and cursed the heat, his yam tubers grew fat, his maize stood tall, and his vegetables glistened with dew even in dry seasons. Some said the river spoke to his soil. Others believed it was his quiet prayers each morning. But whatever it was, Papa Okoro never kept the bounty to himself. When harvest came, he would load his hand-woven baskets and head into the village square. He sold some of his produce to traders from neighboring towns, and with the money he lived modestly. But every year, without fail, he would distribute bags of cassava, yams, and ripe plantains to widows, orphans, and struggling families. "Let every stomach be filled," he would say with a gentle smile, his eyes glowing with joy. "The land gives to me, and I must give back." The people adored him. Children ran to greet him when he entered the village. Mothers whispered blessings upon him. Even the king acknowledged Papa Okoro during village festivals, often asking him to lead traditional prayers for a fruitful year. But not everyone smiled when they saw Papa Okoro. In the shadows of admiration stood a few bitter elders, men whose own lands refused to yield, no matter how much they prayed or labored. Their eyes followed Papa Okoro with suspicion and envy. Elder Njoku, Elder Emba, and Elder Ikena, once respected farmers, now nursed their pride like open wounds. They couldn't understand how one man, with no family and no influence, could harvest more than they did year after year. "It is not natural," Elder Njoku hissed one evening, his voice sharp with resentment. "That man must be using something dark." The others nodded in agreement, their brows furrowed with unspoken jealousy. They had tried everything, fertilizers, sacrifices, even bribes to the local herbalist, but their farms remained stubbornly barren. Still, Papa Okoro carried on, unaware or perhaps unbothered by the whispers behind his back. His days began with songs to the morning sun and ended with him sitting under the big udala tree, sipping palm wine and watching the sky change colors. He often talked to the river, thanking it for its generosity. The villagers said they'd seen him walk barefoot through his fields, whispering as though speaking to something unseen. But to those who truly knew him, Papa Okoro was simply a man with a clean heart and a generous spirit. He lived for the land, the peace of the river, and the joy of giving. One day, after a particularly abundant harvest, Papa Okoro gave away more than usual. He loaded his baskets and went house to house, handing out food to families that had barely made it through the last dry season. Smiles spread through the village like wildfire. The sound of cooking pots returned to homes that had gone quiet. Children played with full bellies. It was a good day, but in the shadows, the elders watched. Elder Emba spat on the ground. "That old man will see. One day they'll stop worshipping him." Elder Ikena tightened his lips. "Or we'll make them." The seed of jealousy had taken root, and it was beginning to grow, fueled not by logic or proof, but by bitter pride. Papa Okoro's kindness had unknowingly sparked a fire that would soon consume the peace of Abana. And as the stars blinked over the village that night, the river hummed gently beside Papa Okoro's farm, still generous, still quiet, and unaware of the storm that was coming. The early morning sun cast golden rays across the rooftops of Abana, painting the earth in warm hues. Birds chirped in harmony, and the scent of dew-soaked soil filled the air. In most parts of the village, the day began with calm and gratitude. But that bright morning, the three wicked has already gathered at Elder Njoku's compound as they sat beneath a raffia canopy, their faces dark with conspiracy. Elder Njoku, the most senior of them, slammed his wooden staff into the ground. "Enough of this foolish waiting," he growled, his aging voice laced with bitterness. "Year after year, we watch that childless old man hand out blessings while our farms yield shame." Elder Embar rubbed his white beard thoughtfully. "Maybe it's time we remind the village that too much kindness can be dangerous." Elder Ikenna leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "People are blind. They see gifts and smiles, but not the evil beneath them. How does one man, with no family, no helper, harvest more than 10 men combined? It is not the work of God. It's charms, I tell you. Dark charms." A tense silence followed, broken only by the distant laughter of children who had eaten well the night before, thanks to Papa Okoro. The sound, once sweet, now gnawed at the elders' hearts like termites in dry wood. They knew they couldn't accuse Papa Okoro without evidence. In Abana, even the king would not punish a man so beloved without cause. But jealousy, like smoke, always finds a way to rise. That evening, as the village prepared for rest, something tragic happened. In the compound of Mama Ifeoma, a widow who had received a large basket of food from Papa Okoro just the day before, a loud wail pierced the night air. Her only son, little Chika, barely 7, had collapsed suddenly while playing outside. By the time neighbors rushed in, his body was cold. The village plunged into mourning. Mama Ifeoma was inconsolable, beating her chest and wailing as women gathered around her. The news spread like wildfire, and before the cock crowed the next morning, whispers began to twist into dangerous tales. "He ate food from Papa Okoro's basket, didn't he?" someone murmured. "Yes. They said he even finished a full piece of roasted yam," another replied. By midday, the village square buzzed with suspicion. Though many refused to believe it, the jealous elders saw their opportunity. Elder Njoku stood at the center of the square and raised his staff. "People of Abana," he shouted, "enough is enough. Can you not see what is happening? A child is dead after eating food from that man. Are we still going to pretend this is not the work of dark powers?" Murmurs erupted. Some nodded, others gasped. Papa Okoro arrived quietly, summoned by a messenger. He stood tall despite his age, his face calm but weary as he faced the crowd. "My hands are clean," he said softly. "I have never wished harm upon anyone in this village." "Then explain the death of that boy," Elder Ikenna barked. "Your food killed him." A voice from the crowd protested. "But my family also ate from Papa Okoro's basket, and we're fine," another shouted. "My children are healthier now than they've been all year." But doubt is a slow poison. It spreads silently, killing reason one breath at a time. The elders demanded the matter be taken to the king's palace, and so it was. The palace compound was filled with villagers, old and young, eager to hear the verdict. King Ofodile, a wise and aged man with braided white hair, listened patiently as both sides presented their claims. Papa Okoro's calmness contrasted sharply with the fury of the accusing elders. "My king," Papa Okoro said, bowing, I have lived a life of honesty and peace. This land you rule knows my footsteps. I would never harm a child, never." Elder Njoku stepped forward, thumping his chest. "Your Majesty, he speaks sweetly like a lizard before it bites. His gifts are traps. That boy's death is proof." King Ofodile rubbed his chin and looked out over the crowd. He loved Papa Okoro, but he feared the unrest growing among the people. He needed peace, and sometimes peace came at a cost. "I cannot prove your innocence, Papa Okoro," the king said slowly, "nor can I prove your guilt. But the people are restless. To protect the harmony of Abana, you must leave. You are hereby banished from the village until the gods reveal the truth." Gasps filled the air. Women wept. Children clung to their mothers. But Papa Okoro simply nodded. "If the land wills it, I shall return," he whispered. With nothing but a walking stick, his raffia hat, and the clothes on his back, Papa Okoro turned away from the village he had given his life to. His steps were slow, but his spirit was not broken. Behind him, the jealous elders smiled quietly. Their plan had worked. But as Papa Okoro disappeared into the forest path beyond the river, the wind shifted, and far away by the quiet edge of his abandoned farm, the river stopped humming. Something had changed. 3 days passed since Papa Okoro left Abana. The village, once alive with laughter and color, slowly began to feel different. The air seemed thicker, the birds sang less, the evenings came colder, and the nights stretched longer, as though mourning the old man's absence. At first, the people tried to go about their daily routines. The market women sold their wares. The children chased each other through the narrow footpaths. The farmers returned to their land. But soon, strange things began to unfold, things that could not be explained. The first to suffer was Elder Njoku. On the 4th day, he marched confidently down to Papa Okoro's abandoned farm with a few younger men. His lips curled in satisfaction as he stared at the rich soil, untouched and moist, like it had just rained. He laughed and clapped his hands. "Look at it," he said. "The real prize. The land itself." He dug the first hole with his hoe and planted a tuber of yam. But the moment his foot touched the soil to cover the hole, a scream tore through the trees. Elder Njoku's body stiffened. He clutched his chest and fell face first into the soil, dead. The young men with him ran in terror, shouting for help. When they returned with others, Elder Njoku's body had turned cold. His eyes were wide open, and in his right hand he clutched a fresh leaf from the udale tree, something that did not grow near the farm. Whispers began once more. "It's the curse," someone said. "No one should have touched that farm," another added, shaking his head. "Papa Okoro told us it was blessed by the river, and now—" But it did not end there. 2 days later, Elder Mba, driven by stubborn greed, also attempted to farm on the riverside plot. Despite warnings from villagers, he insisted. "What can an old man do from wherever he's hiding?" he scoffed. "He's gone. The land belongs to the people now." He stepped onto the land with confidence and began to weed. By sundown, Elder Mba had not returned. When the search party found him, he was lying beneath the tree, his hoe still clutched in his hand, lifeless. His face bore an expression of terror, eyes wide, mouth frozen mid-scream. Panic spread through Abana like wildfire. The king summoned his council in haste. All signs pointed to one conclusion. Papa Okoro's land was no ordinary land. Whatever power it held, it had turned dark in his absence. More troubling still, other farms in the village began to suffer. First, the cassava crops in the northern region dried out overnight, their leaves turning brown even though rain had fallen the day before. Then, the maize fields in the east became infested with a swarm of locusts, something no one had seen in generations. Even the goats and chickens in some compounds refused to eat, staring blankly at nothing for hours. It was as if the village itself was falling under a spell. The women whispered in hushed tones at the market. Children no longer played after sunset. A heavy silence settled over the village square. And the king could not sleep. Elder Ikenna, the last of the three who had plotted against Papa Okoro, grew pale and jittery. He no longer attended meetings or left his compound. He began to have strange dreams, visions of Papa Okoro walking through fire, his eyes glowing like burning coal. He was losing his mind. It was the young men and women of the village who first rose up. "This is not right," they cried out during a gathering at the square. "We banished a good man based on lies." Mama Ifeoma, still grieving the loss of her son, stepped forward. Her face was worn with pain, but her voice was firm. "Papa Okoro gave us food because he loved us," she said. "He gave my child a gift. Maybe it was just the child's time to go, but now the land cries for him." The king listened, his heart heavy with guilt. He had tried to protect the peace of the village, but in doing so he had allowed envy to blind justice. "We must find him," he finally said, "before it is too late." A team of 10 young men, brave and strong, were selected to search for Papa Okoro. They carried food, water, and gifts as offerings of peace. They would follow the forest paths that led past the river, calling his name. As they departed, the villagers gathered at the edge of the square, praying in whispers, hoping that the old man, wherever he was, would listen. Hope returned, faint and flickering, like a candle in the wind. For in the heart of Abana, the people had begun to understand that they had not just lost a man, they had lost a blessing. But the nightmare of the village has just begun. Watch out for part 2.